my knowledge, my ability to think through things. Now you're saying that this bot that I can't even touch, it does it better than me. And so all of a sudden, nurses who had been there for 25, 30 years, either they lost their job or they lost their ranking.
An author, a thought leader, cannot surrender authorship.
When you don't have groceries, I'm not thinking about that. It is a threat to me. Can I compete with that?
Welcome once again to Disrupt the Podcast with Andres Tapia
and Eloisa Domingo,
where we challenge conventional thinking and explore the new ways that are shaping our future.
AI took my job.
Damn.
I know. Not really, but it's happening. And it's taken away people's confidence and
livelihoods.
And livelihood. So that's what we're actually going to talk about today, Andres.
Like all the disruption that we explore, there is always an existential threat that must be addressed. It's real. Has real consequences, right? But we always are pushed through but what's the opportunity?
Yeah.
And how do we navigate the disruption itself?
Yeah, I want to kind of level set here. So we say AI. So AI took my job. Okay, so what is AI? Like, what are we actually talking about here, Andres? When I say AI took my job?
Yeah, I think we're talking about generative artificial intelligence.
Okay, this idea of automation.
Yes, AI automates a whole bunch of tasks, but the thing about generative AI is that it can start imitating a lot of human thinking that we have actually paid people to do and required on that skill. But now, generative AI can not only do it, but it can do it significantly faster. For a much lower cost.
Right. For example, just so that we're all on the same page as we walk through this with our listeners and our watchers here, is I can go on my app right now for Bank of America and move a whole bunch of money and ask them questions about my FICO score and do all this other stuff, and I'm not interacting with a person, but they're answering a lot of things and helping me with my money and retirement and all this other stuff. Whereas in the past, I would have to call and wait, right?
And talk to a real person.
And talk to a real person, which I actually still prefer. But at the same time, I actually just got 5 things done with an AI-generated chat.
But it goes even way beyond that in that that's a transactional experience, right? But, now we're talking about coding, right? That it was a very highly valued skill that took not only knowledge but creativity and design, but it took a long time passing. It takes humans a lot more time to do than AI. But then also writing, not only memos or transactional pieces, but it could even be somewhat creative pieces and essays that make a case and an argument, papers, right? And so where is it that now, where's the human differentiator in all that? Number one. Number two, the market may not care as much about the human differentiator as long as they get something practical that sort of does the job. So, but we have had human beings with skills and education and certifications and experience actually doing that. And now that AI can do it, we're losing jobs.
There are mass layoffs, There are these things where, oh my gosh, this industry goes away or this function goes away. And so 80 people, lose their job, or it goes to another group of people who have this type of skill. For example, when I was in healthcare, there was a huge push that in order for you to be a leader, a clinical nurse leader, you did have to have a bachelor's in nursing. Prior to that, you could actually have a certification in nursing. And so all of a sudden, nurses who had been there for 25, 30 years, so senior level nurses who were running the clinics, who did not have bachelors, who had certifications, all of a sudden they were displaced. Either they lost their job or they lost their ranking after running years and years and years of these clinics or floors in hospitals, to people who were just out of bachelors with the BN and saying, okay, so here I am. But it feels like, at least to me, it feels like this is a lot more disruptive and problematic to people. This AI took my job, as opposed to someone else with,
Technology has been displacing all kinds of jobs for the longest time.
For a long time.
But it has tended to be what would be more classically considered manual labor, blue collar labor. And so that's been happening, and it's been displaced millions and millions and millions of people, not only in those moments of great transition to technological change, but then over time, whole industries or whole job roles and functions disappeared. So what's happening now is that now white-collar jobs that often require college education, office work, those are the jobs.
Yeah.
Those jobs tended to not be affected by automation and scalable digital solutions. AI now is elevating a mechanization of labor or an acceleration by standardization or scalable solutions that then takes away the manual part, and now it's actually doing the mental part.
Yeah.
And so, so what feels different is that a lot of people like us in corporate organizations and white-collar jobs are going, oh my God, if this what's going on, but we're being potentially displaced in ways that many workers who did manual labor have been displaced over generations.
Yeah, this is a really, really interesting distinction that you talked about, is the intellectual, kind of like shift, right? And potentially, I wonder, Andres, do you feel that that's possibly where some of the, kind of like, it's a stab to the heart, but now this is like the turn of the knife. The reason why is because when you and I originally thought of this, we thought about the topic, AI took my job and my confidence. So, and we took that, we're not really talking about the confidence piece, but I think that we're like inferring it now a little bit. Because if AI is taking my job and AI can think, then it's like, wait a second.
Right. It's not only it took my job, like the actual job I'm doing, or it could take my job. It may not have happened yet. But it's taking a whole category out of the marketplace. So that my loss of a job is not just a loss of a job, like a traditional layoff. It's a loss of a skill set that I provided that is not needed anymore by a human like me because AI can do it.
And that I was reliant on that. I was reliant on that skill to be able to get a job in order for me to get paid, right? And now all of that doesn't exist.
Yeah, and actually, let's put a statistic on it.
Yeah.
According by 2030, according to the World Economic Forum, AI and automation may displace 92 million jobs globally. So the scale of this is extraordinary, right?
Yeah.
And it affects all kinds of roles, whether they're clerical or paralegals, but also consultants, or radiologists, right? And so the question is, where does it stop? But here's the twist in the story. And I want to say this carefully because there's a reality in the liminal space between the displacement and what I'm going to say right now. And that AI is also going to generate 170 million new roles for a net gain of 78 million plus positions that do not exist today, right? And actually, if you think about the role of technology over time, let's look at history. The 2/3 of jobs today did not exist in 1940. So right now, many of us are doing jobs that did not exist and now exist because of technology. So we have to be careful because it is an existential threat. However, we need to talk about how do we survive and thrive in this in-between space, and what are those net gain jobs that I need to get ready for, and how do I do it now?
And how do I do it now? So let's, one thing that we promised our listeners was that we were going to make it very real for both of us. You and I talked in an episode prior to this, maybe it was episode 1, about you and I have gone through a lot of professional and personal disruption. Let's start with professional, right? Because I don't know about you, Andres, I'm going to ask, I don't think AI took your role. Is that right? Like, I don't think that you were displaced by AI. Or have you ever been displaced by AI?
I have not been displaced by the AI.
Okay.
But in terms of a cause and effect.
Yeah.
But I've been a consultant.
Yes.
And consulting roles are being displaced by AI, could potentially be displaced by AI.
Yeah.
And sort of what's a leading indicator, what's a lagging indicator of when and where and how the displacement is or is not happening. But a lot of consulting roles like data analysts and more the entry level roles of consulting, those definitely are
Oh
being
yeah, have been
displaced.
definitely displaced. Absolutely.
The more strategic roles are not necessarily being displaced yet, but maybe they could.
Could be. I'm going to be the devil's advocate, right? So I'm sitting here listening and I'm saying, okay, thank you. I get it. But those 170 million jobs that are going to be created, I'm still sitting here and I still don't have groceries because my job has gone away. And I do see that as a threat because everything that I've known and I've done, my knowledge, my ability to think through things. Now you're saying that this bot that I can't even touch, that doesn't have a name, it does it better than me. And so all of those skills are what? They don't exist
and I
anymore?
think let's tackle the tactical, the immediate.
Yep.
How do I survive now?
Yeah.
But how do I now play the long game or the medium term game so I can position myself well for the AI jobs?
But I think that's the piece is that AI is disrupting. I love the word threat because I do think that a lot of people see AI as a threat. You have defined AI in both ways, actually. It's like, no, it is a threat. But the but is that it's also an opportunity to tie HI and AI together and then develop, again, what you and I have talked about as innovation. To be perfectly honest, though, I don't know. When you don't have groceries, I'm not thinking about that. It is a threat to me. I can I compete with that? What you're also pushing, though, is, like you said, this idea of a paradox and living with AI.
AI learned from HI.
Yeah.
Okay, so number one. So where did AI come from? It only comes from HI. And instead of thinking about HI here and AI here as opposed or contradiction or pulling or stealing, with the right prompts, HI generates augmented insight and intelligence and work and productivity that then should stimulate the HI again to think higher order thinking. And in that higher order thinking, it then feeds back to AI that then elevates the thinking. And now we're in a virtuous loop here of elevated thinking solutioning, right? And that is where writers and thought leaders and programmers are able to say, oh my gosh, I've delegated to AI with the right prompts the research that needs to be done that would have taken me months to get to find the right research and to coalesce it and synthesize it and curate it. Right?
I know that, Business Insider recently, they talked about several CEOs. Andy Jassy, the CEO of Amazon, he talked a lot about who admittedly, Amazon is going to let go of how many individuals because of AI?
Well, tens of thousands.
Several tens of thousands. And many CEOs like Jassy talk about to navigate through this is talking about upskilling and creating new roles. And so that's essentially kind of what you're talking about. Let's talk about the upskilling piece, because I think right off the bat, you're giving a really good example of how.
Well, and part of the upskilling, honestly, is learning how to work with AI.
AI.
And actually, as a thought leader, my whole approach to writing has been revolutionized by learning how to work with AI.
Yeah.
An author, a thought leader, cannot surrender authorship.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to fall into a trap of surrendering authorship. If I were to prompt AI and say, hey, AI, write me a 1,200 word essay.
It'd be able to do it.
It'd be able to do it with these prompts, but I let AI write the first draft.
That's right.
I have surrendered authorship.
That's right. Agreed.
Right?
Agreed.
But if I write the first draft, right, and but I can dictate, and I'm an extrovert, so I like thinking out loud.
Yep.
I can dictate, and along the way, I'm sort of authoring verbally, and then I can prompt AI. Says, oh, I landed on a point. Hey, AI, can you go out and see if you can find some data? I think it's over here, over there.
Yeah.
That confirms or doesn't confirm the argument I just made, and then I keep dictating. And then by the end of it, I have, let's say, a 1,200, 1,500, 3,000 word article that I authored because I spoke it.
Right.
But I created placeholders
Right.
for where I need research, and I already delegated to AI to go out and achieve it so I can evaluate it.
Yep.
Right?
I've watched students, college students, high school students, use AI not in that way. It's write me the essay, spit it out an essay, copy, and paste it. the usability of AI would allow them to do that, right? I mean, it's efficient, it gets them, but that isn't necessarily, like you said, it's not necessarily the intersection or the leveraging of HI and AI, the cycle that you talked about. That's number one. Number two, I remember when you and we were planning some of these podcasts, and we were sitting in your backyard and we were thinking through, some things. And one of the things that you've taught me a lot about with AI, because you interact a lot more with AI than I do. So what we've done is we had a conversation about, finances, investing in this business, together as business partners. And I remember you said, hold on. And you turned your phone on and you had ChatGPT, kind of listen to us. And I remember I thought, I don't know what is this? Like, is this, I just thought, is he just taking notes? Like, whatever. But then it spit out, here's what I heard you say, because you had already, exactly, because you had already prompted some things. Like, what are some things that we're not thinking through? What are some things that we are that we may regret? And then you and I actually iterated with this, which I'll be honest with full transparency, I don't know if I had ever interacted in an HIAI way. And then when you and I finally had our final product, which by the way you will see as a podcast later on, it was so much better. Right. Than what just you and I are really smart people, and we have a great relationship, and we're very honest with each other. But I think even for me, I witnessed that AI, if we let it and we prompted it in the right way, we didn't give up authorship of our ideas, but it allowed us to expand on that one topic.
And it was able to be an excellent note taker.
Yeah.
And a synthesizer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And it would point out, well, here's a couple gaps in your thinking.
Yeah.
And that prompted, let's address that. And then we did the iteration once again.
Well, and I think for me, and again, I'm still learning a lot. And again, Andres, I'm learning a lot through AI, just watching you. Having AI listen to us, because you and I talk a lot to each other. And so for it to pick up what we were saying, it then freed us up just to do what we were good at, is just talking, to each other.
Well, and the way to think about it is to think about AI as a team member.
Yeah.
Not a human team member, but a digital team member who actually has the capacity to listen, to synthesize, and to contribute.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why part of the reskilling around AI has to do with learning how to work with it. And learning how to work with it is learning how to ask the right questions of it. And I think this is one of the biggest gaps right now in AI usage, is that we're using AI in a very simplistic way.
Yeah.
Do this, as opposed to figuring out what are the best prompts, right?
Yeah.
And not to see it as a one-way street. Okay, I do this, it gives it back, you go, thank you very much, it's nicely formatted, nicely argued, and we run with it.
Right.
Now we have to use our HI to critically assess it, evaluate it, and then prompt it again. Mm-hmm. So every time I'm in a creation with AI, I probably go through 24 iterations, because every time we go through this, it prompts a new thinking, a new idea, a new hypothesis, and I want to pursue it.
Yeah.
And so that's what the AI as team member looks like.
Yeah.
Actually, I just was reading. So they had the CEO of Zapier, Wade Foster, in an experiment where he wrote these messages to his people, but then they had AI write messages as if they were Wade.
Okay.
And then they asked the audience to evaluate which came from him for real and which were interpreted to be from the AI speaking as if it was him.
Okay.
All right? And so, I won't get into the particulars, but directionally, sometimes a large percentage guessed right and a large percentage guessed wrong about how much was really him writing it and how much it was not. And sometimes they attributed AI to things that he actually wrote and vice versa. And then they interview him after the experiment, and he makes a distinction between authorship and things that really need, the kinds of things that really he would not delegate to AI that he needs to tell his people, and the things that he's okay delegating. So if it's a transactional memo about some announcement, he'll prompt it and let it run it, and it's just a, sort of a public relations statement or maybe even an earnings thing, which, there's not a lot of creativity in it. You don't want creativity in it. You want just the facts, and he doesn't have to author it from beginning to end.
Yeah.
But it's something that requires the CEO touch and leadership and it's affecting their people's emotions and about the future of the company, he says that I would never delegate to AI. So that is a very nuanced approach to using AI, but I think that's the future. And that's the kind of skill that we need.
Yeah.
You know, because I've seen too many people just delegate everything to AI, and then you read it, you go, that's AI.
Yeah.
And where's the person?
Yeah, great point. We, both of us have been displaced, not necessarily by AI, but how did we get to where we were? And I think you and I think one of the things that I would tell our listeners is that, careers aren't linear. And as you're, kind of coming out of this, and you're trying to find your way, and you're trying to figure out what am I supposed to do next. I think oftentimes, and I'll just speak for myself. I remember when I was disrupted out of corporate, I kept thinking, okay, so my default is corporate. So I'm just going to kind of keep going down, this path. That's all I know. But in order to lean into the disruption, I had to disrupt that itself. And so I couldn't go down that path. I have so many, I know this once she was a C-suite, member, and she was amazing, and she was in finance, and she could do anything that she wanted. Her role was, she was at a pharmaceutical company. Her role was eliminated, and I remember she was going back for pharmaceutical, kind of what we call meta biophysical, whatever, organizations, and she said, I really don't want to do that. I just want to bake donuts. So that's what she does. She was this amazing, C-suite finance person in this very big, pharmaceutical industry. And now she makes donuts and loves it.
I think your brother also.
My brother was the number one trauma surgeon in Ohio for a long time, and said, you know what, I'm done. And now owns an amazing bourbon bar in Gahanna, so the southern part of Columbus, Ohio. And my point is that I think leaning into nonlinearity is okay, but oftentimes I don't think that we give ourselves,
right. And I think that's one of the keys of disruption, right? Is that to your point, nonlinear thing is really key. And the examples you gave about the person making, was it muffins?
Donuts.
Yeah. Even better. Even better, yeah. Or your brother, having the bourbon bar. So you can disrupt yourself in a completely different, in that case, analog way.
Completely, yeah.
Donuts, that's pretty analog.
Yeah, it is.
Bourbon, that's pretty analog.
Yeah. That would be another episode to just talk about in general, because this is the first time I've heard that. So that's really, really interesting.
Yeah, I've learned to, knowing that AI will default to the majority input that it's gotten, you can ask AI to, once it gives you an answer, whatever, it's our responsibility to try to spot the bias.
You're right.
But I've learned to ask the AI, can you just look in the mirror, the equivalent of looking in the mirror and spot the potential unconscious bias that you might have been replicating?
100%.
And it does.
Yeah, 100%. So I think that's a really good tip, first of all. And I want to get into tips because here's the thing, Andres, let's just be real. I think that's you're in a very unique situation to know how to do that and to know how to ask, because that's part of your job, right? And you've done that for years in your career. I don't know if the average person would sit there and talk to AI and ask them to mitigate their bias. So let's just, but I think that's a really good tip. One thing that we've promised our listeners, Andres, is this idea of what we're calling Disrupt GPS. And what we've promised them is real takeaways, practical solutions, and advice, so that as they walk away from the podcast, they may feel inspired, but we've also given them some practical takeaways. Let's talk about some of those practical takeaways, because I think I heard four. One of the ones...
You want to ask AI?
Let's ask AI.
No, we'll go with the HI right now.
Yeah, let's go with the HI route. So one of the ones that we talk about all the time is you have to be comfortable in the era of disruption. Disruption sometimes is the answer. And you and I have talked a lot about you have to be comfortable in disrupting yourself. You have talked a lot about not running through the space, but sitting and almost meditating. And before you make some of those choices, to sit and in the disruption, because before making choices, you have to be comfortable with who you are.
And this is not just about doing that once you have maybe potentially been displaced.
Right.
This is now. Yep. Number two is that even if you see the writing on the wall for the particular role that you have, and even if you're disrupting how you do your work and elevating it, you can start thinking, all right, but what are my core competencies? What are my core interests, right?
Yep.
Which I think leads me to maybe our second takeaway. And our listeners are going to hear this on this podcast quite a bit, that to deal with disruption is to really double and triple down on being a person of character. Know who you are and know your purpose. Where is my core? And my core has to do with who I am, and can you answer that question? And I'm sure it's about identity, but it's also about your personality, and it's about the things that really jazz you up and your particular quirks, right? And who am I? And then what am I going to do with who I am?
Yeah.
And that has to do with purpose. And purpose could be about anything. And interesting that your donut friend,
Yeah.
or your bourbon bar brother, found a different, reconfigured, deconstructed purpose.
Yep.
That it's not but just about donuts or bourbon. There's something, and it'll be interesting to have them here to talk about, what was the purpose behind making donuts.
Yeah.
And it's not about just the donuts. There's something inherently important to her that's an expression of, right? And I think we all have an opportunity in this time to ask some fundamental questions. And that kind of speaks to don't think linearly.
I was going to say
disruptively.
Yeah. So that, yes, think disruptively. The other thing too about the linearity piece that I want to bring up, yes. So don't think linearly. Think in a disruptive, way. But one of the other examples that you gave is the HI-AI cyclical iterative. Conversation, partnership. Thank you. To think of AI not as a linear partnership. I'm going to give you something and then you're going to give it back and then I'm going to give it over here.
Yeah.
Rather that this is AI, if it is not a linear tool, and it actually could give you more and challenge you and your thinking more, and really even free up efficiency and thinking, as you mentioned, more brain power. If you don't see this as just a linear and tactical tool,
completely,
but rather as something
generative tool.
Right,
and interesting,
right.
It's generative AI. And so what we're talking about is really understanding the generative part.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think about generative AI sort of on its own little loop there.
Yeah.
That is somewhat responding to
Yeah.
that thing. But that what we're talking about is it's generative HI-AI continually.
Yeah. Yeah. And Andres, remind me, because we said 4, and I think that the 4th one is reskilling.
Well, right. Because
Yeah.
once you figure out what's happening in your space, into your job, your arena, your industry, and you go, here are the threats, here are the opportunities, then there's going to likely be a gap between the skills I have
Right,
today
that you have now.
and
Right.
now identify that, but you want to identify in the context of really knowing who you are and what you want to do and what's your purpose.
Yeah.
And then get tactical.
Yep.
And then get
Yep.
reskilled as much as possible.
love
And
that.
by the way, one way to accelerate reskilling is use AI.
Good job. Back around.
Exactly.
Good job.
Yeah.
So, this was an amazing, podcast. Again, displacement, AI losing your job, that it's very real. We hope that we've given you, some really good, takeaways. But I hope that you also start seeing a little bit of the thematics, that we talk about, but also some of the new things that we're giving you, to think about some tools in terms of AI. Full transparency, I'm still learning a lot about AI. AI has not, displaced me, but at the same time, I don't know if I've really leveraged it as much as I, can. If anybody wants to, by the way, I have told him so many times, you need to run an AI class. The way that you use AI is amazing. We hope that you got, a lot out of this. Some of the things that we would encourage you to do is check out our websites. We have Andres' website, my website, we'll link it, here. We also have our Disrupt podcast website. And we have some other tools that are on all of our websites that you can say, gosh, I never really thought about that. You can also contact us because there are some really great ways that we can kind of help you walk through some of the solutions you might be thinking through.
That's right. Once again, it's great to be with all of you, and encourage you to keep interacting HI to HI because that's what keeps us human.
That's right.
But HI to AI and back is also very enriching.
Thanks so much. Adios.
Adios.